Yo, what is up guys, Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So this is my last preview video in regards to fights on the Saudi Arabia card going down this Saturday. And a fight I haven't spoken about is Arslenbek Makhmudov versus Agit Kabayel. Of course this fight is at heavyweight. And, yeah, going under the radar a little bit, but it's a fight I have time for. Now, listen, I expect Makhmudov to win, but we've not really seen Makhmudov in there with a prime heavyweight of any real substance. Makhmudov so far, you know, look at his resume. He's fought no-hopers, he's fought journeymen, he's fought, you know, tough has-beens like Carlos Takam, Marius Vac, etc. But he's not fought any heavyweights in their prime who are at a decent level. And I would say Kabayel is in his prime, and he's a guy who's fought at a decent level in his career, shown some decent skills, etc. Of course, a former European champion, completely outboxed Derek Chisora several years ago. But honestly, Kabayel hasn't really moved on from that. He's never really built on that, but he's maintained an unbeaten record over the years. In fact, both of these men are unbeaten. Makhmudov is 18-0 with 17 knockouts, and Kabayel is 23-0 with 15 knockouts. And honestly, I think it's a fight that's good for both men. Kabayel in particular, after that Chisora fight, he kind of trod water for a long time. It seemed like he was just hoping that one of the big heavyweights would give him a call, so that they could fight him in a voluntary title defense. And in the meantime, he was fighting low-level competition, but that never got him anywhere. In fact, it wasted several years of his career. So he's back to the position now where he needs to fight somebody of consequence to get himself back in the mix, and Makhmudov, one of the up-and-comers, certainly represents that sort of challenge. Makhmudov himself, like I said, he's fought those kind of tough gatekeepers like Marius Vac, like Carlos Takam, several tough journeymen as well, like Jonathan Rice. So he's fought those sort of guys, but again, we've not seen him in there with anybody who is in their prime, with ambition per se, and I think Kabayel represents that. Stylistically, interesting fight. Makhmudov does a lot wrong technically, I have to be honest, but he is incredibly strong. Maybe one of the hardest punchers at heavyweight. Very heavy-handed, very aggressive. He's very strong as well physically. I've seen guys try to hold him and clinch with him, but Makhmudov has a habit of pushing them back, pushing them off, creating space. Even in the clinch, if he's got a free hand, he still generates a lot of power. He's a very strong guy, but like I say, technically there are flaws there. I think sometimes he's way too guilty of coming in straight lines, head on centre line, low lead hand sometimes as well, not a tight guard. It feels like he's open for a guy who can take a half step back and fire a straight down the middle and counter him coming in, because he really does bull rush fighters. He really does try to ambush fighters, and in doing so he leaves a lot of openings. So yeah, Makhmudov's an interesting fighter, very exciting, very powerful, hits hard, very dangerous, but he is flawed. Kabayel is more of a passive type of fighter, I would say. Primarily leads off with that jab. He's got a relatively good guard, likes to take a half step back, likes to keep it at range, likes to engage in a bit of a fencing match. He's that sort of fighter. He can move laterally as well. He can move backwards. He's somewhat awkward. Not the biggest puncher, but he is the boxer type who likes to move and be tricky. And maybe Makhmudov needs that sort of fight. It'll be interesting to see whether his pressure, whether his strength, and his superior size and power can get to Kabayel, or whether Kabayel can, you know, weather the storm in the early rounds and then maybe get something going. I think Kabayel in this fight does need to be more ambitious than he's been in certain fights. I think what he did against Chisora is not going to work in this fight. I think he needs to be more willing to let that straight right hand go against Makhmudov to try and stop him in his tracks, try and give Makhmudov something to think about. I do believe Kabayel needs to be a bit more offensive in this fight. Obviously, stick to his style, stick to being that distance boxer who likes to move, who likes to take the half step back. Needs to do all of those things, don't get me wrong. Do what he's good at and try to outbox and frustrate Makhmudov, but I think him being purely negative isn't going to work. I think he needs to mix things up in this fight. And like I said, if he's got the bravery and nutsack to actually let go of some shots and really step into some punches, especially counters, I think the openings are there for Kabayel to land some good shots. It's whether he is brave enough to really take those type of shots, because he is going to have to hold his feet to do so, in my opinion, to really sit down on those punches. But yeah, it's a relatively interesting fight. It's good to see Makhmudov back in the ring against a guy who does have ambition this time around. So we'll see what happens here. I think, like I said, I think it's the perfect fight for both, considering where both guys are at right now. You know, these guys who have similar records coming up need to start fighting each other, as far as I'm concerned. And this is the sort of fight I'm talking about. In fact, after Makhmudov's last fight in October on the Fury and Ngannou card, he blew away a cruiserweight. And after that fight, I mentioned that Kabayel could be a viable opponent for him. And here we are. I think it's the sort of fight he needed. I think it's the sort of fight Kabayel needs. And we'll see who does the job. I think the safe bet here is Makhmudov. I think physically he's far more imposing. He's stronger. He punches harder. He's got the momentum going into this fight. He's the guy probably feeling himself. He's knocking everybody out. Kabayel has been very stop-start for a number of years. Basically ever since that Chisora fight. He's been fighting once a year, ever since that Chisora fight, actually. So he's not been the most active. He hasn't fought the highest level competition. So with that being said, I am picking Makhmudov to win. I believe he will stop Agit Kabayel. And I think he'll do it in 5 to 6 rounds, to be honest. Mid rounds, I would say. I think Kabayel's good enough to survive a few, but I don't think he will have the offense to really keep Makhmudov honest. Honestly, I think Kabayel's only chance in this fight is to catch Makhmudov coming in with something big. I don't think he's got the... even if it goes for distance, I can see a scenario where he gets outworked, he maybe gets dropped a couple of times. I don't think he wins on points. I think he needs to land a big shot here, to be honest with you. He needs to land a big shot. But yeah, okay fight, I guess. Again, nothing to write home about per se. I think Makhmudov should win, but it's relatively interesting. It's relatively interesting. Anyway, share your thoughts below. It's been your guy Delboy. Peace.